G'day Eagles fans and welcome to this week's early edition of the Inside Swoop. All thanks to Jim Beam, loving their continued support of the show. Will Schofield, how you going? Hobo's too far, but you've rocked up in some real casual kit for 22 of the best. And how's your A-grade kit right now? Are you trying to say something to the show? What's going on?
Well, I mean, it's business time, right? So chuck on a suit, look nice.
Where's it been?
Well, I mean, if we took a deep dive into your closet, I don't know what we'd come out with, to be frank.
Don't put the mirror up. It's not good.
Okay.
We had, mate, you and I have had to front up to some stinkers over the course of 2023.
Yes.
This one's right up there, particularly with the good form the boys had sort of coming in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I agree, mate. Look, I've been quite critical of the club this week, and I stand by it, and hopefully the fans understand where that comes from. It comes from a place of care. Like, I do care about the footy club and the players and the coaches and everyone inside, but I do think this loss is the worst of the year for the club. And, you know, you can disagree, but I just, off the back of real positivity, that's what the disappointment comes from, I think. Earlier on in the year, some disappointing performances, but it was, pretty flatline stuff to start with. So, look, they got smashed around the footy. Freo were able to do some things they haven't been able to do this year. That was a 15th ranked side that they were playing against, so they weren't playing against Collingwood. That was the other disappointing element. And a derby. Look, I've played in a lot of derbies. I think I played in 16, and although they aren't spoken about internally as bigger events, they are. They just naturally are, whether it be the crowd or the players you're playing against. You do end up going to another level, and I just didn't think that game went to another level, specifically from the West Coast side.
Yeah, tough one. They started well, thought the game was going in a completely different direction, but alas, another 100-point loss. It's the 7th now in the last 32 games. Let's hear from senior coach Adam Simpson, who spoke after the game.
Yeah, we couldn't handle their pressure. The contest, the danger signs after the 15-minute mark was probably the ease of which they scored. So the ball hit the deck in our back half, and we've been holding up all right recently, but it was too easy. And then floodgates opened really for the next 2.5 quarters, and get what you deserve. So we weren't strong enough around the ball. We coughed it up. Yeah, we didn't manage it at all. But like when you're chasing like we were, we tried a couple of things before the game. There's a few ins and outs we had to deal with. Forwards got too high in the end, so they ended up just chipping it around. So trying to support, and then it was not a great day. Took a step backwards today. We started with some different things. We changed positions with our players, but when it's the contest, like when it's just winning the ball and put your head over the ball and embrace the pressure, it's hard to fix that from the coach's box. We've just got to keep training it, keep turning it up, and understand that's where the game's at. Your method around the contest is important, but the actual will to win part is really important. It's the most important part. So we let ourselves down today. And we had 51,000 fans, and they've just turned up every week to let them down, as well as each other. I think they're really disappointed. So a couple of weeks to go, and we've got a choice to how we want to handle it.
So a few talking points to come from the contest other than just the result itself. Tom Cole subbed out of the game, tons of ice on his ankles, looked like both ankles. When you miss a season and a half with ankle dramas, it's something you definitely don't want to see. And then you've got Oscar Allen. If they're charging him per roll of tape, he'll be broke. I know it's a big deal, but he looks like a mummy out there at the moment.
Yeah.
Simo said that Oz put his hand up and said, I'm ready to go back out there. And he had to be like, mate, just relax. I think the game's done at this stage.
Well, yes, and you have to think longer term too. I mean, these two players, we've seen since Tom Cole's back in the side what he's done to the back line. I think a real uptick in performance has come off the back of getting some players like Coley back. Now, he externally isn't someone that people talk about as a real influencer of this group, but he is. I can tell you he is. And having him back in that side and fit has been great to watch. I was worried when I saw, I think he kicked someone else's leg. But if it's more positive than negative, that's a great thing. And Oscar Allen, look, again, I've been vocal on here and said he's the best player at the club. I don't think that's outrageous. He's going to kick probably almost 50 goals this year in a side that hasn't gone well. The long-term health of Oscar Allen needs to be considered, but I'm sure the short-term as well. He's the sort of guy that wants to play in these big games, and next week's a big game, as is the following, clearly, with Luke Shuey and Bunga hanging up the boot. So the right decision will be made with him, but it's better seeing both those guys out there than not.
Whether it makes a difference or not with his availability, but Coley was cleared of this dangerous tackle deep into the first quarter on Amos, driving him into the deck for the dangerous tackle, so that was thrown away from the match review panel.
Good.
Which was pretty handy. Let's recap the start of RAC Derby 57. Bizarre scenes, it must be said, with Hoffy pulling out of the game just moments before the opening bounce. Too many hits of the ventilator is what's transpired. I wanted to ask, how aware are you of some of these rules and, having Jack Williams being brought almost out of the stand? We've seen instances like that when Swaggy X, Xavier Ellis, had to be pulled out of the stands once also.
Yes. To summarise, without going into detail, I don't know what's going on. We've heard from the coach and the club, but when a player goes out that late, it's complete turmoil. Like, you just think about it's so system and structure based AFL game day. This is when you put your boots on. This is when you put your jumper on. This is how long we're spending on the ground for the warm ups, and we're talking 4 minutes and 20 seconds. Like, it's down to the second. So when you lose a player within 2 minutes of the start of the game,
2 minutes is generous.
I can just imagine the chaos it would have caused, not only on the field. You saw on the bench. You saw Jack Williams would have been sitting up there just about to hoe into a pie probably. I'm sure he looks after himself better than that. But he would have been upstairs, phone call. Did
you pack your boots?
I had one week. I was forever an emergency. And Nathan Vardy, chronic prankster, came running up and all panicked into the players. Scully, they need you downstairs. Go straight up.
Did he get you?
Marching out. And I'm open the door and he's like, nah, gotcha. So Jack could have even thought it was a joke. Clearly not a great way to start the Derby, but I don't know. It is what it is. You've got to give credit to the medical staff, I would have thought, around. It probably could have been a worse situation than it was, and big positive there.
Well said. Speaking of the medical staff, hats off to them. Jermaine Jones and the team punching out his rehab, getting back after 12 weeks off in the game, straight into it. Didn't know if he was going to come back a sub or have some waffle time, but kudos to all of them for getting the body cherry ripe and coming back into a massive game.
Well, you forget how much he was missed. Before he was injured, he was that real run and gunner off the half-back line and spent some time in the middle, spent some time forward. He was being thrown around a lot, but what he did really well, he was always looked like he was able to play his role. So, he didn't look too rusty, a couple of little things, but big inclusion back, and good to see the number 31 still out there, Thumper.
He's an important part of their structure and how they want to play going forward, I think. So can't wait to see him next year. I know it was a dirty day for the club, Scully, but anytime plays like this take place, we're going to highlight them. Luke Foley, laid in, fighting for a chance to keep his spot in the senior team, and more acts like this will go a long way. How gutsy is that? You'll never see vision of me doing that.
Well, I haven't, no, and that doesn't exist because you've never done it. And I wasn't going for the mark, but I was injured at waffle level, going back with courage. I ended up on a stretcher with a broken back. So for him to go into a contest like that, take the mark, he's that sort of guy. Just that's not out of the box for Luke Foley. That's, he's developed, I'm sure, since I left the footy club, but he is that courageous guy. He can do those sorts of things. So I wasn't surprised when I saw that.
So Greg Clark, who came on as the sub in the fourth quarter, backed it up the next day. He ended up playing around about 3/4 of the Waffle Eagles. You were there, on fire in the second term. I think he had 11 touches. A superb effort, especially from all the Waffle Eagle players, both listed and the top-ups. I know that blew out late. The 9-goal final term sort of doesn't give a true representation of the score. But they had a good crack against a superior Subi team, it's got to be said.
Yeah, they're only a few goals down at half-time, and I saw pretty much all of the game. Look, I was
You're on that bouncy castle with Nash, weren't you?
I was very close to that, actually. That's exactly where I was. With a few of the boys down there, it was good to see Luke Shuey, Shannon Hearn, Oscar Allen down there. Liam Duggan was floating around as well. And yeah, look, I was really impressed. Clearly, I played a couple of games in the side and it wasn't going as well. I thought that was a better side and better structure and better effort than I've seen in my time watching the Waffle this year.
Bulldogs game, 8-day break, finally a little bit more spell on the road. Seems an eternity away, the fact that we're recording this so early. No doubt the players will be looking for a reprieve to get some confidence back with an improved performance. Luke Shuey teased with you that he might be sub going over there, unsure how cherry ripe he might be. He might have the Adelaide game in sights, but what do you want to see out of Sunday's game against the Doggies?
Well, it's going to be a difficult matchup. They lost to the Hawks last week in Tasmania, 3 points. They're fighting for finals, so there's a lot on the line for them. Now, I won't say there's as much on the line for West Coast because you're clearly not playing finals, but I've spoken to Simo today, seeing some messaging out from the club. There is something on the line for the footy club. You can't just roll in and dish up the performance they did in the Derby. It's not good enough.
It was interesting what he said about getting that momentum, much like in 2017 where you played out the back end of the year. I know you were in finals and getting into the bottom half of the 8, but the carry-on form that you can have, you believe in that, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. There wasn't a season in my career where the back half of the season was irrelevant. Whether I've played in the Wooden Spoon, played in grand finals, all of them. If you think about the back end of the season, there's always something on the line, whether it be players with contracts, the way the team is being coached and the style of play, confidence levels, everything, something for fans. So you're going to want to see an uptick in performance in the last 2 weeks, which quite frankly isn't too hard from what we saw on the weekend, but there's going to be something on the line for West Coast.
Well, of course, round 24 is going to be a real special one for the club as we celebrate the careers of legacy players Shannon Hurn and Luke Shuey, and I'm sure we'll see one more trotted out around the boundary line as well. We want to make as many fans as possible to come out, be there, send them off in the most fitting manner they deserve. And speaking of the farewelling players, Scully, emotional day for the club. Another one bites the dust. Save the biggest news of the week until the last bit of the show. Nick Natanui hanging the boots up. No farewell game, which is tragic. One of the most influential players in AFL history. I don't think I'm going to go out of line by saying that. 213 of the best. Dual club champ, 3-time All-Australian. In the end, the body just couldn't hold up. And that is really the theme of these 3 stalwarts going out.
Now, before I get into telling you how good Nick Nat is a player, just no farewell game, tragic. Hey, there's no farewell game for Will Schofield. There's been many to come before me that haven't had one either. So, you know what? As brutal as that is, that's how footy is. Sometimes you get one, sometimes you don't. You're injured.
I saw Juddy play an 07 final where he couldn't move out the square. Just get Nick Nat's boot off, in the moon boot off, put him in the square as sub, roll him out there.
I wonder if there's a spare seat in the car that he's going to get a lap of honour. Didn't get one of those either. Now, Nick Natanui, don't worry about me, this isn't about me. Nick Natanui, he changed the way the game was played. So just to have that said about you as a player, that you changed the way a game of football has been going for over 100 years and you've changed it, I don't know if you could have a better thing to be said about you. He brought an athleticism and a style of play to the ruck that we'd never seen before, and we may not see again. Like Luke Jackson's probably in the same ilk, but they're different players. I think. I spoke about Nick earlier in the week. Speaking about what my memories of him are. There's the competitiveness element. Like he was a brutal competitor that. I used to see this look in his eyes pre-game, and you just knew he was on. It was like a killer, and I don't mean that in a literal sense, obviously, but just going out there, going to battle. He loved competing, and then there was the show reel, the hangers, the goals. Like some of the goals he kicked that goal against GWS back in the day. The hangers he took, I'm sure, like there's every chance there'll be some sort of posterised Schofield somewhere of him taking a hanger.
There's a heap of them going around.
And you know how good, like that's what he used to do. He used to jump all over people, take massive marks. His ruck craft and the clearance work. Like people forget about those taps he used to do down the front. He used to hit the ground like an absolute freight train, running out the middle. And then chuck it on his boot. He never had a beautiful kicking style, did he? But he used to get the job done most of the time. So I look like, great teammate to go. Hurn, Shuey, Natanui, like 3 really memorable teammates over my time. I'm starting to feel old, Thumper.
Most down-to-earth superstar I've ever met, and what he's given back to community and fans alike will go unmatched. Just before we go, don't forget the AFLW season is right around the corner. It's 3 weeks until kick-off against the Dockers. Don't forget to sign up for your AFLW membership in 2023. You get access to all the games, Superstore voucher, well worth the purchase. Season launch actually happening this week, and the Eagles media team will cover that. But it is on to the Bulldogs this weekend. That's it for this week's episode of the Inside Swoop, courtesy of Jim Beam. Scully, you've played the part, you've upped your performance. I think your dress code has something to say about that.
Like I said to Simo, bring your suit next week.